Hello friends, this is Eli with Mystic Circuits. Today we have a new kit that we'll be building, and I'm happy to say that this is by far our easiest kit. So I'm highly recommending it for any DIY, synth DIY, soldering newbies out there, and I'll be going extra slow in order to cover it, but it will still most likely be a very easy video. If you haven't already seen our video on soldering basics, for anybody who is new to this, I highly suggest watching it. It's a half hour, but it's everything that I wish somebody had told me when I started doing this, and it's time well spent. So I'll go ahead and leave the link to in the description below so that you can watch that before embarking on your soldering journey. So here we have the 0HP EYEtenuator. You'll get it in this little bakery bag. And first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna open this sucker up, make sure we have everything. Sometimes parts get stuck in the bag, so you wanna check in there. Now, our glasses, very important. Don't wear these while you're soldering. Put those to the side. We have a circuit board. Obviously the most important part, so good thing that that's here. We have the panel, which still has paper on it. I started chipping them with paper because it just takes me hours to peel, but it takes you 20 seconds. So cut me some slack, guys, okay? Now, this is also very important. We have our light sensors. These are the part that actually does all the work in the EYEtenuator. We'll go ahead and stick those over there. We have this pair of resistors, little blue body guys. They're unlabeled because there's only one value, so we can just stick it here. We have 4 jacks. That looks good. And then these are the standoffs, which connect the circuit board to the little acrylic backing. So we'll put that aside now. Let's go ahead and start off with these light sensors. They're nice and big, and the legs are spread apart, so they should be pretty easy to do. Now, I'm going to put these light sensors, these little legs here, there's this zigzag guy inside the eyeball. And you can see it doesn't exactly, but it sort of looks like this light sensor, right? This oval. There's 2 little holes right here. 2 little holes match 2 little legs. So we stick the legs in the holes. Push it through. Now we've got both our light sensors. We kind of push them down so that they're laying flat. You know, they don't have to be perfect, but flat enough that they don't stick out of the board like that, because that can get ripped off later. So put them down, kind of hold them in place, and then we go on the other side. We bend the legs over before we solder. And that way, everything stays nice and still while we're doing this. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how we solder this. Make sure everything's still in focus. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. Whoop. Here we go. We got our soldering iron. Just going to go ahead, and as always, we tin the tip, especially because this iron, it's been a minute since it's been used. So go ahead and just let a little solder flow on there, and then actually, you should probably see this. This is the sponge. I don't normally use a sponge. I use a kind of like a wire, what would you call that? It's kind of just like a bunch of it's like one of those things you scrub your dishes with, like you scrub a pan. You just stick the solder in there, but a sponge is fine. Basically, you're just gonna you can put some solder on there a couple times and just wipe it off. And that way, you've got that nice shiny surface for the solder to adhere to. It just kind of helps clean off all the chemicals that have been in the residue that have accumulated over time with the iron. Chances are nobody else has done it in a while. So here we're gonna go ahead, stick this iron right next to the leg. You see I'm doing it so that I don't put the tip of the iron on the leg like that. I put the side of the iron, and that's because it helps to heat up the surface more effectively. You just sort of poke some solder on there. Very nice. Now, give you a good look. Refocus. There we go. So we have this nice Hershey's Kiss shaped joint. I can pull on the leg. It's not going anywhere, and the joint doesn't look like it's moving at all. That means that we've made a good connection. So I want you, especially if you're a beginner, to check all of your joints after you make them and just make sure it's got that nice shape to it. Otherwise, there could just be like a big blob of solder sitting on the leg, and you'll wiggle it around and the blob kind of moves with it. That means it's only going to make a connection to the circuit board when the blob's touching it, when it feels like making the connection. So that's fine. Refocus. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. See, got the nice blob. I'm not going to show you every blob from now on. Just know that you should be checking your own work. I do this for a living, so I know when it's a good connection. When there's a connection. Okay. Sometimes you just gotta add a little more. We're looking good. Just to the side. Alright, so just kind of wiggle the legs around. Give them a gentle pull. Don't yank on it. You don't want to put more stress on these connections than you have to. Everything looks good. Now, we've got our little snippy tool. Just going to go ahead, snip off these legs. They are no longer useful to us. Alright, if you look on the other side, there's our little light sensors. Looking good. They don't move around at all. Success. Now, we have these resistors to do. So we pull the little paper pieces off, and then you've got them in little individual pieces. Now, you'll notice that this footprint for the resistor, oh, well, I guess it's helpful to know that the resistors go where these little circles are, and they go from this hole connected with that line to that other hole. They don't go over here, they don't go over there. Everywhere where there's a resistor, there's a little circle and the line that connects the two holes that it goes across, right? So, in order to fit in that hole, what we need to do is we hold the body. Sorry, my nails are long and gross right now. Hold the body, and we just kind of bend this leg over. So it makes like a U shape almost, like a horseshoe kind of, with the body on one side. That'll make it look nice and neat once it's in the board. All right, do it with the other one. Now, especially with this build, I like to put the body on the side that has the circle in it. It just makes everything look nice. It's not, if you do it backwards, then it won't affect anything, but just having that symmetry on such a simple board really helps to make it all look snazzy. So we've got the resistors in the right place. Again, take a look. This is where the resistors should be. I'm just going to hold them down with my finger, just like I did with the light sensors. I'm going to bend these legs over on the back. Now you'll notice that I'm not bending the legs completely out like this. And that's because if I try to solder these legs, I'm going to end up accidentally putting solder on this leg right here, and it'll just make a whole big mess. So when I'm building these, I like to bend the legs so that none of them are interfering with anywhere else that could be getting solder on it. Hope that makes sense. Just check the focus. Sometimes I make these things and then I realize that it's blurry for half of the video. And I upload it anyways. So, got our legs in a nice spread out sort of star shape in order to prevent them from interfering with each other. I'm just going to go right down. Actually, I'm going to tin my iron again. Sometimes if you take a long pause and talk, it gets the shiny sort of surface goes away a little bit. So, okay, here we go. just like the other one, I put the side of the, it's moving around a bit. I put the side of the iron on the joint that I want to make. Stay put. There we go. And then put the solder on. Now, these two that are in the middle, they might be a little trickier, and that's because they're connected to what's called the ground plane. You don't need to know what that is. Just know to be extra careful there. Maybe leave your iron a little bit longer because it requires more heat to make a good connection for these. There we go. So if you are having issues with your build, I would look at the connections either here or here. There's not a lot that can go wrong with this, and a what we call a cold joint here would mess some stuff up. So go ahead and do this. All right, and I'll bring it closer again so you can see that the connections, there we go, are looking snazzy. Move it around. Nothing's going on. Okay. And then we snip the legs off. My God. We're halfway done with this. Last part we have to solder for. Basically, you take these jacks and you'll notice that there's a little doohickey on the side. That tells you which direction it's going in. So put it there. I'm real bummed it ended up covering up the eye, but you know what? I think the eye still looks good on there. I might tweak the design a little bit for the next one, make the eyes look cooler. But yeah, if you'll notice, the jacks are all in now. It should be fairly obvious. You line up the square of the jack with the square that's on the circuit board, right? Now, if you have an iron that changes heat, you're going to want to increase the heat a little bit because these tabs are larger and therefore they require a little more heat than usual. So, tin the iron. Oh, I don't know if you noticed, but the tab is flat and I put the iron flat against it so that it heats the entire thing up at once. Then you just press the solder into that, and I usually like to put in enough to cover the hole. It's entirely possible to still make a good joint without covering the entire hole, but usually if you can't see this hole anymore because it's full of solder, that's a pretty safe bet that you've made a good connection. But you'll see even it makes the same sort of Hershey's Kiss shape where the solder is kind of flowing up the tab. So again, same rules apply for making sure that the joint is good. I like to do all of the tabs that are facing in one direction at once, and that's because when you're soldering together 100 of these, you figure out how to save yourself some time. So do it like this, soldering the hole. Okay, then we rotate and we do the tabs that are facing in the other direction. And there you go, we're done soldering this thing. That was fast, wasn't it? Okay. Just taking a look at that. Looks good. Ooh. All right, now we're gonna add the acrylic backing. Pretty simple. Just take your fingernail, hopefully it all comes off in one go. Kind of wipe off any little bits of paper or charred plastic that might be on there. If it doesn't go off in one go, I'm sorry, but you'll know what I've been going through for the past couple months. Okay, yeah, there's sometimes, because I'm basically firing like a very hot laser into the plastic, there will be some charred paper. So it's nice to just give it a little wipe down. I don't usually use my fingers for that. A sock is a nice way not to scratch the acrylic, or some alcohol, if there's some adhesive still stuck to the acrylic, will help a lot to get it looking nice. Yeah, so these are our standoffs. They came in this little bag, right? And you'll notice that, come closer for this, you will notice that the sides are not the same. One side has this jagged edge, the other side has this smooth edge. And the smooth edge, jagged edge, smooth edge. The smooth edge is the one that we want to put into the holes in our circuit board. So take this, put that in there, put that in there, and that in there. If you do this backwards, it's not the end of the world, but it just makes a more reliable connection to the acrylic. Obviously, if it's accidentally the wrong way, you can flip it around. It's totally fine. So take our acrylic and we just kind of line it up with the holes. You can see those little standoffs going through all 4 holes, right? And then I like to place it on the table. I use my monkey strength, both thumbs. If you do 1/4 at a time, it's more easy to break the acrylic backing. So I like to do 2 sides, use the monkey strength. You'll hear that nice snap on the edges there. It might leave some little indentations in your table, so if you don't want to do that, do it on top of a book or a magazine or something. And there you go. We've got a 0HP EYEtenuator. This video was by far my shortest video, and that should be a pretty good indication of how easy this kit is to do. Nothing you plug in backwards. There is no backwards with any of these parts. It's all super easy, beginner level soldering, beginner level, assembly. Hopefully it all went smoothly for you. If this was your first kit, congratulations. Go plug it into something and wave your hands around and make silly sounds. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Eli from Mystic Circuits signing off, and I hope you have a wonderful day.